The day entrance exams ended, the school beauty, in front of everyone, dragged me into the woods. Before I could even react, she kissed me. Her soft, sweet scent flooded my mouth. Then she trembled and said, "Yifan, I'll give you my heart. And everything I'll ever have. Just promise me one thing. Even my life can be yours." I was honestly stunned. Only then did I learn. Her mother was gravely ill and needed 600 grand. For a spoiled rich kid like me, that was half a month's allowance. But I still turned her down. This icy top student, this school beauty, priced her heart high. Too bad I never trusted love. My parents married for family business interests, then played the perfect couple for 20 years. Did they have hearts? Of course. They just gave them to other people. So don't talk to me about hearts. I'm allergic. I straightened up and walked over. I was a head taller than her. I saw her shoulders shaking and tears clinging to her lashes. When I raised my hand, she froze. She closed her eyes. I only flicked her forehead. She froze. She opened her eyes, confused. I pulled back, looked right at her, and said slowly, "Chuchusi. Listen carefully. Right now, do you want me to be a jerk using you? Or a decent guy who pulls you out of this?" She was stunned. She stared at me like her brain crashed. But I had patience. I just looked at her. At last she snapped back. Her tense shoulders fell. Chuchusi spoke with tiny hope. Her voice barely audible. I shook my head at once. No, I'm not a charity. Even with money to burn, I don't waste it for nothing. 600 grand buys dozens of Napoleons. The hope in her eyes died. Seeing her about to break, my urge to tease vanished. So I softened. But I won't be a jerk or a saint. Let's be business people. Your grades are excellent. You're a decent investment. So I can lend it to you. Call it my investment. 600 grand, I can send it now. In her eyes, joy suddenly exploded. But I have one condition. 10 years later, pay back 1 million. The interest isn't high. For you, it's doable. And in next month's entrance exam, get into Qingming. That proves you can repay me. My risk control clause. She looked like she'd caught a lifeline. She nodded hard at once. Afraid I'd take it back, I left her my number. Then turned and left. I didn't check her face. Leaving the woods, sunlight felt warm on me. Honestly, I didn't care if she repaid me. 600 grand meant little. The contract was just for show. Otherwise, everyone would beg me for money. Even I couldn't burn cash forever. 600 grand, to buy one good deed today. Not bad. And I saw the school beauty embarrassed up close. Fair deal. After calling the lawyer, I set the time and place. Then sent Chuchusi the contract. And that was settled. I kept walking. To my real destination. The club activity room. Through the window I saw everything. My childhood friend, Jiangli, was laughing with some thug-looking guy. Our families went way back. Business tied us close. So Jiangli and I grew up together. That was fine. The key was her sister, Jiangshui. A woman born to win. Beautiful. Ruthless. And best of all, nice to me. Her allowance for me started in the millions. For a lazy rich kid like me, she was basically a walking ATM. Besides, Jiangshui was about to marry my perfect big brother. Soon, she'd be my sister-in-law. Pure blessing. My slacker life would be safer. But because of that thug, Jiangli's grades had dropped hard. When Senior Jiangshui asked me herself, I knew I had to step in. After all, I took her money. Might as well earn it. Before I opened the door, a boy rushed out and hit me. He stumbled back 2 steps. Eyes full of shame and hate. I knew him. He seemed to be a poor student Jiangli once helped. Good grades. Honest face. From that look, it was the classic savior crush drama. Then she fell for a thug. Ouch. I shook my head. I almost laughed. Kid, way too innocent. When rich kids spend money helping people, it's usually just habit. A casual flex of status. It doesn't make us good. If you're grateful, then climb higher. Repay it with value. That's the real world. But add feelings, and you're begging to bleed. I ignored him and pushed open that fake door. Jiangli was chatting with San Yang, smiling like a flower. Once she saw me, her smile froze. Her brows tightened. Her voice turned guarded and annoyed. Yifan, what are you doing here? Here to make me dump a young too. Then save your breath. You're just the Yi family's useless young master. You can't fix your own life. What right do you have? I wasn't angry. I almost laughed. I'm not controlling you. I'm just curious. The Jiang family's obedient princess fell for this kind of guy. Jiangli raised her voice, full of contempt. What do you know? Ah Yang isn't fake like rich kids like you. He lives honestly. He lives free. She grabbed Sun Yang's arm. Her face was almost worshipful. That's what being alive means. Your boring planned life is empty. It's a waste. Then she turned on me again. Especially you, Yifan. You can't study. You can't even have fun. Besides your last name, what do you have? You're useless head to toe. I nodded, as if I finally understood. Got it. The wind of youth. Right? Jiangli thought she'd won. A smug look crossed her face. Sun Yang puffed out his chest. He wasn't that scared anymore. The next second, I looked down at Jiangli. Awake now. Under my stare, she stepped back. Sun Yang was still groaning on the floor. His eyes were full of fear. I walked up to him. Don't you love being real? Don't you love freedom? Come on, tell me. How does it feel? Still free. Sun Yang sweated from pain. He couldn't speak. Jiangli tried pulling me away. But one look scared her back. Weren't you tough? Quiet now. He shook too hard to make a sound. Suddenly, I got bored. With that little guts, he still dared chase a rich girl. I grabbed the shaking Jiangli and took her to the west side where shady people gathered. I dragged her out of the car and pinned her to a filthy alley wall. The stink of urine and rotten trash hit us hard. Jiangli threw up. I pointed at punks cursing by the alley. My voice went cold. Look, your wind of youth. Real enough. Free enough. Like it. I'll throw you over there now. Jiangli turned pale. She clutched my arm. Crying so hard she gasped. I was wrong. Yifan, let's go home. Let's go home. Please. Just then, I caught a familiar figure nearby. It was Sun Yang. While I looked away, he limped off from the alley's other end. I didn't bother chasing. Trash like him wasn't worth it. Jiangli saw him too. All color left her face. Her last fantasy collapsed with that coward running away. She stopped crying. She just stood there, like her soul was gone. I shoved her into the car. She stayed silent the whole way. At the Jiang family gate, she opened the door and walked in, dazed. I didn't get out. I told the driver to turn back. That night, a message came in. It was Jiang Shui. Yifan, thanks. I sent a "You're welcome" sticker. That was it. As expected, the Jiang family stayed quiet for 2 days. No one made trouble. I knew. My future sister-in-law had handled it. Good thing I stepped in. My slacker life was safe. But the next day, I couldn't laugh. Sun Yang was dead. A car accident. Turns out my future sister-in-law was crueler than I thought. That family felt scary. Everyone wore a perfect mask, removing obstacles coldly. My elite brother, Yiyun, was like that. So was Jiang Shui. Only I was different. I just wanted an easy life. A chill ran through me. I sat up in bed. I had to move out. Stay away from ruthless people. Survival came before slacking. I told no one. Early next morning, I carried my packed suitcase. Downstairs, my mother sat in the living room drinking tea. Seeing me, she only lifted her eyes. Her tone was flat. Where are you going? Changing beds? She asked no more. She went back to her finance magazine. As for my father, who knew where he was, this house was cold as ice. I pulled my suitcase and left that fancy villa behind. I had a downtown penthouse I bought ages ago. Perfect, finally useful. The place was huge and empty. The fridge was emptier. So I drove to the biggest supermarket nearby. I needed food and snacks to fill the place. Pushing a cart, I moved through packed shelves. Like a shopping robot, I threw things in, dead-faced. But at one corner, I stopped. In the clearance section, I saw a girl sneaking around, stuffing bread into her sleeve. She looked a few years younger, small and thin, in a uniform washed almost white. Her face looked clean. Too bad her hands weren't. I said nothing. I leaned against the shelf, arms crossed, watching her. She was struggling hard. Sleeve too small, bread too big. She kept trying. Sweat forming on her forehead. Finally, she sensed something and froze. Then slowly looked up. Our eyes met. I stared, silent. In 10 seconds, her face visibly went pale. First came fear. Then panic. Then heavy shame. And humiliation. Her hand shook with the bread. Then with a soft thud, it fell to the floor. Like all her strength was gone. Her whole body shrank. Head down, wanting to disappear. I walked over, picked up the bread, and tossed it into my cart. Then, I swept biscuits and candy from the shelf into the cart. Soon, it was piled like a hill. I pushed it in front of her. She kept her head down, body tense, waiting for judgment. I tapped my shoe near her faded canvas shoes. No money for food, she trembled. Then gave a tiny nod. But a second later, she quickly shook her head. I got impatient. Nod, then shake. Playing charades, what is it? Speak, my tone darkened. She flinched. Then looked up at me. Her eyes were red, full of tears. She opened her mouth. But only broken sounds came out. Her hands moved, desperate to explain. I froze. One thought hit me. She couldn't speak. Looking at her helpless face, my irritation vanished. Right then, I regretted it. I felt like a total jerk, the kind I'd slap myself for at midnight. I stopped talking. I turned and got another cart. Then filled it with shelf-stable food. I pushed both carts and waved her over. She still couldn't react. I didn't explain. I grabbed her wrist and went to check out. After paying, I carried most bags. She followed like a little tail. She held a few bags of new snacks. I loaded everything into my sports car. Then told her to get in. She hesitated, but opened the passenger door and sat down. Then I asked for her address. She took my phone. Her small fingers tapped for a while. Then she pinned a location. The old district. The kind of place I'd never passed by. I said nothing. I just started the car. The ride was painfully quiet. She kept her head down, hands gripping her hem tight. We drove through narrow old alleys. And finally stopped. Before a crumbling apartment block. I killed the engine and helped unload the food. The hallway was dark and damp. Musty, with some strange stink mixed in. She led me to the third floor. And opened a peeling wooden door. A heavy herbal smell hit me. The room was tiny, tiny enough to see it all. Only then did I understand what having nothing meant. On a worn wooden bed, an old woman lay thin as bone. Her eyes were closed. Breathing weak, the girl set things down and rushed over. She tucked the blanket in skillfully. Her eyes were full of worry. I roughly got it. It wasn't just food. She couldn't afford treatment. She stole because she was starving, but wouldn't touch her grandma's medical money. Another sad life set up. I hated seeing this most. After settling her grandma, she walked to me and bowed deeply. Then she picked up an old notebook and quickly wrote something. In neat handwriting, thank you. How much was all this? I'll pay you back someday. Looking at it, I almost laughed. Pay me back with what? Stealing again. I said nothing. I took out my phone and called my family's assistant. I kept it short. Old Wong. Contact the city hospital's VIP ward. Send an ambulance to the West Block in 15. I'll send the address. Put it on my account. The call took under a minute. The girl froze completely. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, forgetting to cry or write. I understood. For her, what she might beg for all her life was for me. Just one phone call. I nudged the bag by her feet. Why are you frozen? Pack up, we're going to the hospital. She snapped back. Then hurried to pack. There wasn't much. A few faded clothes. A chipped enamel cup. The ambulance arrived fast. The medical staff lifted the old woman onto the stretcher. The whole time, the girl clutched my shirt, afraid I'd vanish. I felt awkward, but didn't pull away. At the hospital, everything was already arranged. The VIP ward had 24-hour caregivers, and top doctors began right away. I stood outside the spotless ward, watching doctors and nurses move, and the girl by the bed, terrified yet grateful. The gloom in my chest, from Sun Yang's death, faded a little. Money really could buy peace. Then my shirt was tugged again. She held up that old notebook. It said, "How can I repay you?" I leaned on the doorframe and looked at her. "I never asked you to." She panicked and wrote fast. The words got messy. "No, I can't take your money for free. You're a good person." Seeing good person, my smile widened. Even I could be called good now. Money was powerful. I stopped her from writing. I'm not good. And I hate trouble most. If you keep arguing here, you're giving me trouble. My twisted logic confused her. She stared blankly, not knowing what to say. Seeing her like that, I sighed. I walked over without another word. I took her notebook and pen, and quickly wrote a few lines. Then I shoved it back to her. Think of it as insurance. Study hard. Get into a good college. If I go broke one day, give me rice when I beg. She stared at the notebook for a long, long time. Then she looked up. Those spring-clear eyes, finally filled with tears. She made no sound. She just cried silently. Tears falling on the notebook. Feeling awkward, I looked away. Stop crying. Your grandma needs you. What's crying gonna fix? What school are you in? I'll have old Wong pay tuition too. From now on, I'll send 5,000 a month. Until you graduate and work. Don't say no. That's insurance too. After that, I couldn't watch anymore. I gave the doctor a few instructions. Then left. Driving down the wide road, I suddenly found it funny. Me, the Yi family's second young master, broke. Please, impossible. I was just spending money to buy some good karma. After all, people around me were crueler than the last. I needed more karma, so a slacker like me could stay rich forever. Then 5 years later, I went broke. Just 5 years, when my perfect brother Yi Yun was exposed after marriage. I was standing on a private island. When the call came, I nearly laughed. I saw it coming. That brother of mine was soft and weak deep down. Yet somehow, he loved acting devoted. I was too lazy to watch the drama. Rich marriages were all the same anyway. Until my bank cards got frozen one by one. Every property under my name. And my stocks vanished overnight. Only then did I realize something was wrong. By the time I rushed back, everything was settled. Yi group belonged to the Jiangs. My dad was charged with financial crimes. The evidence was solid. He'd spend life in prison. Useless Yun got kicked out penniless. And even me, a harmless slacker, wasn't spared. All my private savings from 20 years were gone. I stood outside my penthouse, staring at two blank-faced bodyguards, blocking me. My head buzzed. Sister, seriously. Revenge is fine. Even destroying my dumb brother, fine. But you jailed my dad. Then emptied me too. The more I thought, the angrier I got. Was I stuck in some female lead revenge novel, playing the unlucky side relative who got swept away too? Then the door opened. Jiang Shui sat on my favorite Italian sofa, elegantly swirling a glass of wine. 5 years had passed. She looked prettier now, colder too. That aura of total control almost suffocated me. When she saw me, she put down her glass and smiled gently. You're back. I said nothing. I just stared. She stood and walked toward me. She reached for my face. Don't look at me like that. I didn't want this either. I turned away. She wasn't angry. She pulled back and said, your brother was an idiot. I gave him a chance. Too bad he wasted it. Jiang Shui shook her head. Amusement flickered in her eyes. So, that's why you wiped out my family. She paused. Her voice turned tempting. But things are different now. He betrayed me first. My revenge was fair. Now, I don't need a husband. She took another step closer. Her pressure was sharp. Xiaofan. Want to stay with sister? I'll take care of you like before. Hearing that, I laughed until tears almost came out. I looked at her flawless face. Listening to you, I'm wondering if you sent him off too. Her smile finally stiffened. Only for a second. But I caught it. My last bit of hope vanished. As expected, this woman was crazy from the start. She'd do anything to win. I stopped smiling and looked at her blankly. Then I slowly raised my middle finger. The last smile on her face disappeared. Only cold indifference remained. You don't know what's good for you. She waved her hand, not even looking at me. The two bodyguards stepped forward, one on each side. They lifted me like a baby chick. I was thrown out of my own home, standing in the empty hall. I couldn't help sneering, if I believed her nonsense, and stayed till she got bored. I'd die without knowing how. I knew I couldn't beat her. Even my old fox father fell into her trap. What could I do? A guy who only knew comfort. Stay away from that cycle. Staying alive mattered most. I took out my phone and opened my contacts. I found people who once called me Brother Yi and made the first call. Hello. Young Master Sheng, it's Yi Fan. Silence. Then he said carefully, "Sorry. Wrong number." Then he hung up. I froze. Then laughed at myself. And dialed the second one. Same result. Third, fourth, either wrong number or no answer at all. I leaned against the cold wall and deleted those so-called friends. One by one. By the end, only a few family contacts remained. Fine. I sold everything valuable on me. Altogether, under 100 grand. That amount once couldn't cover one night of drinks. But now it was all I had. I wandered along the street. Somehow, I returned near my apartment. With nowhere to go, I gave a bitter smile. If all else failed, I'd work in a factory. Low bar, food and lodging. After 20 rich years, I'd had enough. I lowered my head, walking as I planned my next move. Then I bumped into something soft. A clean, faint scent drifted over. I almost apologized. But when I looked up, I met a pair of clear eyes. A pretty, gentle girl. She looked familiar. But I couldn't place her. But she clearly knew me. I saw it clearly. The moment she recognized me, her eyes filled with joy and relief. She opened her mouth, like she wanted to speak. Then she seemed to remember. In the end, she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She typed quickly. The screen read, "Mr. Yi. Do you remember me?" I looked at Mr. Yi. Not many still called me that. I studied her face. Pieces of memory came together. Then it hit me. I was surprised. 5 years ago, that trembling girl in the supermarket, caring for her grandma in that shabby room. It's you. Her eyes lit up. She nodded hard. That happiness almost spilled from her eyes. I got even more confused. "Why are you here?" She typed again. Then held up the phone. It said, "I saw the news. I was worried about the Jiang family. I guessed you might come back here. So I waited. Since yesterday. Something hit my chest. So that meant, after I got kicked out." She had waited outside the apartment I couldn't enter, using the clumsiest way to wait for one chance. A strange feeling rose in my chest. While my so-called friends were cutting ties, a girl I'd nearly forgotten had waited for me all day and night. I tugged my mouth, wanting to speak. She seemed to notice my awkwardness. Her screen lit up again. "Do you have nowhere to go?" I stayed silent. That was answer enough. She put her phone away. Then she did something I never expected. She reached out and held my sleeve. Her grip was weak. I could easily pull free. But that tiny pleading force on my sleeve felt like an invisible chain, holding me there. She pulled me toward the street corner. For some reason, I didn't resist. I simply followed her. We reached a small bakery, glowing with warm light. It was called Glimmer Bakery. The door was closed, but the display lights were on. She unlocked it, then looked back and waved me in. The shop wasn't big, but it was clean. The air smelled of cream and warm bread. She took out a sealed folder from under the counter, then pulled out yellowed paper and pushed it to me. It was the insurance clause I scribbled 5 years ago. "If I fall into poverty, give me rice when I beg." She pointed at the words, then at me, then at herself and the shop. Her eyes were deadly serious, like fulfilling a sacred deal. Finally, she turned, and from the oven, took out a warm croissant, and handed it to me. No pity, no sympathy. Just, "Now it's my turn." I took it and bit down. It couldn't compare to my old fancy meals, but somehow it felt warm. "Are you hiring?" The girl froze. Then, a bright smile bloomed on her face. She nodded hard. That day, my messy first half ended. And the second half became tied to this little shop called Glimmer. And my boss was the mute little girl I thought I'd never see again. Her name was Shan Yue. With the money I once gave her, plus her own savings, after college, she opened this bakery here. The shop wasn't big, but business was good. The neighbors looked after her. They'd deter just to buy bread and chat a while. That poor girl had it rough. Good thing now, she has help. He looks reliable too, wearing a little bare apron. I clumsily packed fresh toast. Hearing that, I felt nothing much reliable. I couldn't even do basic chores. What part of me looked reliable? But my arrival did lighten her burden. At least mixing flour and carrying sugar sacks weren't on her alone anymore. After closing at night, we went back upstairs. Barely anything at home. Described her old place. This one was only one wall better. One dining table, 2 chairs, one sofa, and a tiny balcony room. That was my bedroom. Smaller than my old bathroom. But I slept better there than I had in 20 years. No schemes, no fake smiles. In the air. Only a faint wheat scent downstairs. I began learning to be normal. Learning to sweep without raising dust. To cook porridge without blowing up the kitchen. Most of the time, it was a disaster. I mistook salt for sugar and ruined a whole pot of red bean paste. She took one bite. Her face scrunched up, but she swallowed. Then she drank a huge glass of water. Then wrote, "The taste is unique. Next time, less sugar." Seeing her so serious, I got mad and wanted to laugh. I grabbed the bowl and dumped it. From then on, I learned sign language. I bought stacks of books. Every night after she slept, I hid in my tiny room, practicing with my phone. From hello and thank you to you worked hard. Good night, the first time I awkwardly signed good morning to her. She froze, then in her usually calm eyes, it was like a star fell in. So bright I froze. She raised her hands and answered seriously. At that moment, for the first time in over 20 years, I felt something was worth doing. Days passed like that. And life slowly improved. From an idiot who couldn't use an oven, I became someone who could whip cream. A sneaky little baking apprentice. Business kept improving. We even rented the shop next door. An expanded glimmer. My bank account looked decent again. Enough to rent my own place. A few times I wanted to tell Shinue. But every time I swallowed it. Move out, live where? Eat what? Alone would be boring. Besides, running this place wasn't easy. I could still help, right? I found myself plenty of excuses. Then shamelessly stayed. Shinue never mentioned it. Like she'd accepted me there. I didn't believe in love. My brother. That brother of mine proved why. But the peace beside Shinue was honestly addictive. I shook my head, forcing those messy thoughts out of my mind. It was noon. Time to make her lunch. I took off my apron and headed upstairs. But just then, a familiar figure pushed the door open and walked in. She wore a perfectly tailored suit. Flawless makeup, hair neatly tied. From head to toe, she carried elite success. It was Chuchusi. After 5 years, the shame and humility from poverty had vanished from her. She was no longer that icy school beauty, begging me in a faded uniform. Now, she looked polished and perfect. Behind her stood a young man, just over 20, in a suit, like a fresh graduate. The way he looked at me was openly hostile. Probably her assistant. Chuchutsi's gaze paused on my little bare apron. For a second, her brows barely twitched. Then that proper smile returned. "Yifan, long time no see." I nodded. That counted as hello. My hands kept untying the apron. She seemed to want to ask, but held it back. In the end, she took out a check and pushed it to me. I glanced at the number, picked it up and pocketed it. It was what I was owed, though I never expected it back. The assistant behind her saw me take it so fast and looked even more disgusted. Chuchutsi adjusted her expression. Her gaze swept over our small bakery, then landed on my face. That look was far too familiar. High above, full of pity. Xiaofan, I heard about your family. If you have nowhere suitable now. Then later, my company. My husband and I just started our company. We're short on people. Seeing her charity act, my stomach turned. Back then, it was an investment. Now she'd paid the debt. We were even. But with this attitude, she wanted to turn her old creditor into her charity case. I looked at the assistant beside her, his hostility growing sharper. Then I understood she was enjoying being someone's savior. Like I once watched her embarrassment. Now, she was watching my fall. Only she was more hypocritical. Wrapped in warmth and kindness. I rejected her coldly. "No need. I'm fine here." Chuchutsi's smile stiffened. "Xiaofan, don't act out of pride. I know how you used to live." I cut her off. My tone was already impatient. I said no. She finally stopped. Displeasure flashed across her face. "Fine, since you've decided. I won't force you." But as she turned, her male assistant stepped forward at once. Thoughtfully, he supported her arm. Chuchutsi naturally turned back and gave him a smile only they understood. A smile. Right then, I casually raised my phone and quietly snapped a photo. Perfect angle. In the photo, his hand almost touched her waist, and her smile would make anyone think there was no way he was just an employee. I raised my phone and waved at them. Then I spent 2 minutes finding her husband's public email. Then anonymously sent him the photo. After that, I deleted the photo and record. My mood improved after Shen Yue. Finished lunch, my mind settled too. Leaning by the counter, I thought about that million. The number nearly dazzled me. How long since I'd seen this much? At least life didn't have to be so tight. And also, Shen Yue wanted a new machine badly. The more I thought, the happier I got. I never knew 1 million could matter this much. Just then, the door chime rang. A crisp voice, pretending to be soft, cut into my thoughts. Xiaofan. I turned and saw Jiangli. So many familiar faces today. If I remembered right. Her unlucky husband, Yang Yonghao, died less than 2 years ago. What do you want? I leaned on the counter. Expressionless. She bit her lip. Her eyes went watery. And that look made me sick. Jiangli sounded wrong. I wanted to see you. Second Miss Jiang. What drama are you acting now? I laughed. Her eyes reddened at once. Like she'd been deeply wrong. Yifan, I know I was stupid. I did many wrong things. I always thought I wanted passionate, dramatic love. But now I understand. I only wanted a stable home. Her tone was sincere. Her eyes were affectionate. She looked up, staring at me with watery eyes, full of love and memories. Yifan, let's start over. I know your situation. My sister went too far. But it's okay. I can support you. Her tone carried pity and charity. Oh, bad girl comes home script. But don't twist it. When did we ever start? When did we ever start? I barely held back an eye roll. My mind drifted back. Her wedding with that poor student. Yang Yonghao. Grand and touching. At the wedding, she cried and called him her light. The happiness she'd hold forever. Back then, I stood below, watching that poor fool get moved speechless. That guy, I had one thought, bro, you're done. Sure enough, less than 2 years in, Jiangli got bored once passion faded. And marriage became bills and meals. She naturally grew bored. Then, right on cue, a green tea guy appeared. Luckily, that poor guy had a spine. He had dirt on Jiangli. He wanted to fight back. Then he died. What a coincidence. Behind it, Jiang Shui was probably involved again. I pulled my thoughts back and looked at Jiangli, still acting in love. Right in front of me, I smiled wider. Jiangli, do you think all men are fools? Her face froze. I spoke slowly. Your husband's funeral was pretty grand. I saw the news. You cried like your heart broke. Very touching. Almost made me cry. Too bad that night I saw someone who looked a lot like you enter a hotel elevator with a handsome guy. All color drained from her face. Oh, right, that guy didn't last long either. He jumped. Jiangli, aren't you tired? I stepped closer, staring into her shaking eyes. Wearing a mask every day. Doesn't it disgust you? She backed away again and again, until she hit the doorframe. Her whole body shook like a leaf. You're lying, she forced it out. But her voice was hollow. I was done wasting words. I didn't fear revenge. A woman obsessed with acting saintly would never let herself lose control and strike back from shame. Her image mattered more than life. She'd worn that mask too long. It was stuck to her face now. Leave like she'd been pardoned. She stumbled and ran out. Her back looked pathetic. The shop finally went quiet. I let out a long breath. It felt like 5 years of bad luck left with it. Light footsteps came from the stairs. Shen Yue came down with fresh dessert. She walked over and handed me the bowl. Her eyes asked what happened. I shook my head. Nothing. She sighed with worry. But you look unhappy. I looked into her clear eyes and smiled. Then I made a rusty sign. I'm okay. She understood. A sweet smile bloomed. Sunlight came through the window, falling warm on us both. After that day, I stopped caring about that circle. I cut ties completely. Now, I only wanted to live well with Shen Yue. Run this shop and stay peaceful. Every morning at 5, I woke before her. I went down to prep the first dough. When she came down, still sleepy. The kitchen already smelled of wheat. Hot water was ready too. She always signed good morning first, then tied her apron, and started the day's desserts. I rarely spoke, but we worked smoother when she got busy and sweaty. I handed her iced water. When she took it, her fingers sometimes brushed my hand. Cool and soft. I began noticing her habits. She no longer carefully guessed my thoughts. Life felt full. By day, we ran the shop. At night, she taught me harder desserts. Sometimes, without paper or notes. We could still talk all night. That silence made me feel safe. I began thinking seriously. Should I marry her? I didn't believe in love. But I started believing. Some people were meant to stay. I simply wanted to live with her. 3 months later, I confessed. More exactly, I proposed. That day was her birthday. I secretly prepared a small surprise. In the shop, when she came down that night, candles lit the whole place. She froze at the stairs. Covering her mouth, I walked to her, knelt on one knee, and took out a ring. I don't know pretty words. And I don't believe in big vows. But will you? She cried, tears falling like pearls. One by one to the floor. She nodded hard, then held out her hand for the ring. The ring was a little big. Her hand was too thin, but she clenched her fist to keep it on. I hugged her, breathing in her faint hair scent. At that moment I felt my first. 20 years were only to meet her. Our wedding was simple. Not very big. We invited only the neighbors. And a few close classmates and friends. That was all. I didn't care for a grand show. I just wanted to give her a real wedding. The day before, I got a haircut and cleaned up. I bought myself a decent suit. We chose Shen Yui's dress together. When she tried it on, she glowed. I watched her in the mirror outside. And it felt unreal. This angel-like girl was really marrying me. The wedding went smoothly. Her grandma had recovered a lot. She came in a wheelchair. The old lady held my hand and weakly said thank you for taking care of our Yue. I felt a little embarrassed. She's the one taking care of me. When we exchanged rings, Shen Yui's hand shook. I held her hand and whispered, don't be nervous. It's just a procedure. She laughed softly, and her nerves vanished. Mr. Yifan, do you take Miss Shen Yue as your wife, poor or rich? I do, Miss Shen Yue. Do you take Mr. Yifan as your husband, poor or rich, sick or healthy? To love and respect him. Shen Yue couldn't speak, but she nodded hard. Then she signed, I do. The host froze, unsure what to do. I smiled and translated. She said she does. Warm applause rose below. During the kiss, she was shy. Her face turned apple red. I kissed her lips gently, very lightly, afraid I'd hurt her. Then I leaned to her ear and said, hello, please take care of me. She laughed in my arms, shoulders shaking. Our classmates came to toast us. An old roommate said, Xiao Fan, you've changed. Before, you looked like nothing mattered. Now, you look human. I looked at Shen Yue with her grandma and smiled. Maybe I finally have someone worth caring about. After the wedding, we went back upstairs. Everything was the same. Only now, flowers and gifts filled the room. Shen Yue changed out of her dress and into home clothes, then made me a late-night snack. I stood at the kitchen door watching her and felt deeply satisfied. This was the life I wanted. Two people, simply together. She came over with food and saw me zoning out. She waved a hand before my face. What are you thinking, you? Her face reddened and she hit me lightly. Then she wrote, Yifan, we're married now. Do you regret it? I shook my head. Never. You never. It just feels unreal. Like a dream. I reached out and pinched her cheek. Does it hurt? She covered her face and glared. Then she wrote, this isn't a dream. And I love you. When she wrote those words, her fingers trembled. Under the warm light, her lashes looked like wet butterflies. I stared at that line, and my heart took a heavy hit. Not some childish racing heartbeat. Not the thrill of spending money. It was fine and heavy. Steady in a way I'd never known. I took the pen from her, closed the notebook, and put on a serious face. Mrs. E, trying to keep me awake tonight. She blushed even harder. Then clumsily signed. It's true, right then. I sighed. Then pulled her into my arms. My chin rested on her soft hair. She slowly quieted down. Her breath brushed my neck. At that moment I felt all the family wealth. Jiangshui, Chuchusi. Everything I had now was worth more than my past 20 years. But fate. Love smashing happiness when it peaks. After marriage, life was like rising bread. Warm and full. We woke at 4 to knead dough. At 6, the first croissants came out, filling the room with scent. She taught me cake decorating. My hands always ruined the cream. She held my hand and corrected me. On quiet afternoons, she napped on the counter. Sunlight passed through the window and scattered across her face. I often watched her sleep, wondering how she stayed so clean, untouched by this rotten world. But mud always splashes up. One rainy evening as we closed, drunk men slammed open the door. Their leader was a local thug. Brother Chong who'd asked for protection money. I chased him out with a broom. Now he reeked of booze. And kicked over the door plan. He barked, "Mute girl. Get out here." Shen Yue was counting money. She froze. I pushed her behind me and grabbed a rolling pin. Brother Chong grinned, showing yellow teeth. "Young master, he still thinks he's somebody. I heard you married a mute. Came to drink your wedding wine." The thugs behind him burst out laughing. Their filthy eyes stuck to Shen Yue. I gripped the rolling pin until my fingers went white. "Oh." Protecting her that much. He stepped closer, breathing booze in my face. "Still want this shop open." Suddenly, Shen Yue slipped out, holding a box of fresh cookies. She forced a smile and gestured they were for them. My heart felt stabbed. This fool thought kindness could soften malice. Brother Chong slapped the box away. "Who wants this trash?" Cookies shattered across the floor. He reached for Shen Yue. The second his hand moved, I snapped. I hurled the rolling pin at him. In the chaos, I lost count of the hits. I only remember shielding Shen Yue tightly by the counter. Her trembling hand touched the blood on my mouth. Tears fell from her eyes. But no sound came out. I wiped my face and forced a smile. "Why cry? Your man's not dead." She cried harder. She curled into my arms like a scared little animal. That night, she slept holding my arm. Any movement woke her. Seeing her dark circles, fear rushed through my chest. What if I hadn't protected her? The next day, I bought a solid steel rod and hid it under the counter. When Shen Yue saw it, she shook her head hard. I tapped it and signed, "For protection." She lowered her eyes and wrote, "I'm afraid you'll get hurt." "I'm more afraid you will." I rubbed her hair. "Shen Yue, you're all I have." She looked up. I sweat. Then nodded softly. Peace didn't last long. Jiangli returned like a ghost. This time, she stayed outside. A flashy red sports car parked by the road. In sunglasses, she crooked a finger at me. I was mixing flour. Too lazy to care. So she leaned against the car. "Does your wife know how you helped Chu back then?" Her tone was teasing. My hand slipped. The flour bag hit the floor, bursting into white dust. Hearing it, Shen Yue ran out and looked at us, confused. Jiangli took off her shades. Her gaze swept over Shen Yue, full of pity. "How sad. You married a useless man who couldn't give you a real wedding." I clenched my fists. Veins throbbed in my hands. "Watch your mouth." "What? Scared? You weren't like this before. When the school beauty begged you, didn't you enjoy it? Why act devoted now?" Shen Yue didn't understand. But she felt the tension. She gently tugged my sleeve. Eyes full of worry. I breathed deep and forced down my anger. Then I signed to her, "It's okay. Go inside first." She hesitated. But Jiangli played a recording on speaker. It was Chu's voice from years ago, shaking with tears. "I'll give you my heart. And everything I have. Just promise me one thing." "I'm not a charity." Shen Yue turned pale. She looked at me, then Jiangli. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Jiangli put her phone away. "Little sister. You really think he's good? He helped Chu just to watch her fall apart. You're talking nonsense. Maybe he helped you on a whim too." I lost control and rushed for her phone. Jiangli screamed and hid in her car. Locked the doors, then sped off. Only we stood there in flying flour dust. She lowered her head, shoulders trembling. I reached for her, but she stepped back. That step cut like a knife. After closing that night, the attic felt suffocating. Shen Yue fixed the bed with her back to me. Never looking over, I held her shoulders and made her face me. "Do you believe her?" Shen Yue bit her lip. Tears filled her eyes. She wrote, "Was what she said true?" "Yes, but not all of it." I wiped my face and told her everything. How I rejected Chu and made that contract. "Shen Yue, I admit I'm not good. But with you, it was never charity." She stayed silent a long time. So long, I thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she raised her hands and signed slowly. "I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared one day you'll find me boring and stop wanting me." Her fingers trembled. "I have nothing." My heart tightened. I pulled her into my arms. "Silly girl. I'm the one who only has you. That night, we held each other. Like two wounded animals licking wounds. But Jiang Li's words stayed in Shen Yui's heart. Like a thorn, she grew sensitive. If I came home 10 minutes late, she got restless. If a woman chatted too long, she quietly walked away. I noticed, but didn't know how to fix it. Until one night I woke and found my side empty. Shen Yue curled in the balcony corner, crying silently under moonlight. I walked over and hugged her from behind. Her body stiffened, then slowly softened. She buried her face in my arms. Let me tell you a story. I told her about my parents, about my brother and Jiang Shui, about the rot under all that glamour. I never believed in feelings. I thought everything was a deal. But you're different. You gave me something worth living for. Under the moonlight, her eyes looked like wet black glass. She slowly traced my brows, my eyes, my nose, then stopped at my lips. Then she leaned in and kissed me lightly. A pure kiss, without a trace of desire. Like first snow in my palm. I froze, then kissed her back. Something quietly melted in that kiss. The thorn in her heart was finally pulled out. Life became peaceful again. But danger hides in the dark. One afternoon, an unwanted guest came. Jiang Shui. 5 years later. She looked even stronger. Her custom suit didn't belong in our small bakery. No bodyguards. She came alone. When she looked at Shen Yue, her eyes were cold and sharp. So this is your chosen life. Hiding in this place. Playing house with a mute. I kept Shen Yue behind me. Say what you came to say. Jiang Shui calmly sat down. Yi Fan, you're still childish. Shen Yue gripped my arm tight. Jiang Shui slowly opened her bag and pushed over a yellowed photo. In it was a young couple. The man looked somewhat like Shen Yue. The woman held a baby. Your grandma never told you, did she? Your parents didn't die of illness. They died in a car crash. The driver was Yi Tao. Yi Fan's father, drunk driving. The air froze. My head buzzed. I almost fell. Shen Yue stared at the photo. Face white as paper. An accident. Jiang Shui stood, looking down at us. Yi Fan, your father killed her parents. And now you marry her, acting devoted. How ironic. Shut up, I roared. But my voice shook. Jiang Shui leaned near Shen Yue and whispered, little sister. Guess if he's kind to you. Only because he feels guilty. After that, she turned and left. Like she'd never been there. Only hellish silence remained. Shen Yue didn't move. Like her soul was gone. I reached for her, but she flinched away. Her eyes looked empty. Strange. Shen Yue, listen to me. Before I finished, she pushed me away and ran upstairs. Bang, the attic door locked. I chased her and knocked hard. No response inside. Then paper slid under the door. Only trembling words, let me be alone. That night I sat outside until dawn. No sound came from inside. But I knew. She stayed up all night and closed the shop next day. I brought porridge upstairs. But the door stayed locked. Third day, fourth day, still the same. She locked herself in, refusing food or water. The bomb Jiang Shui left nearly destroyed our tiny world. While Shen Yue stayed locked upstairs. I was like a trapped beast, pacing around the narrow shop. Flour covered the floor. Burnt cookies still sat on the tray. The air smelled sour with despair. Countless times I wanted to rush up and smash that thin door open. But every time I saw her notes, each messier than the last, my raised hand fell. I feared my closeness would be the final straw. That helplessness was worse than losing my family. Back then, I could at least be angry. I could curse. I could take my suitcase and leave. But now, I had no right to be angry. The culprit's blood ran in my veins. Jiang Shui found my weakest point and shattered it. On the fifth night, a muffled sound came from the attic, like a small animal whimpering. Then came a heavy thud. My heart almost stopped. I forgot everything else. I used the spare key and forced it open. Shen Yue had collapsed by the bed. Her face was gray-white, lips dry and cracked. An overturned glass lay beside her. She must have tried to drink, but lacked even that strength. After days without food or water, her body had hit its limit. I rushed over and lifted her. She was light as a feather, like she might vanish. I patted her face. My voice shook badly. Her eyelids trembled, then opened slightly. Her empty gaze landed on me. unfocused. I truly feared she would leave, afraid I'd lose the chance to atone. Like mad, I rushed downstairs, heated porridge, mixed warm water. I gently opened her lips and fed her with a small spoon. She swallowed mechanically. I still empty. After half a bowl, I brought hot water and wiped her pale face and cold hands and feet. Through it all, she was like a doll in my hands. Only the tears sliding down proved she was alive. I tucked her under the blanket, then lay beside her. I held her through the blanket, afraid to sleep, afraid she'd vanish if I closed my eyes. Shen Yue, I whispered. My voice was hoarse. I know you hear me. You can hate me, blame me, anything, but don't die. If you die, what about me? I've been a jerk for over 20 years. But I never wanted to hurt anyone. I'll bear my father's sins. If hating me helps, then hate me. I pressed her hand against my chest. But don't punish me like this. And punish yourself too. Your grandma gave everything to raise you. She didn't raise you for this. Remember the croissant you gave me? It was the bitterest, sweetest thing I'd eaten. Bitter because I'd fallen so low. Sweet because of you. You lit a tiny light in my world. If you disappear, that light disappears too. My world will truly go dark. I didn't know how long. I talked until my throat burned. Her body was still cold, but her breathing steadied a little. At dawn, I got up to make her food, but a cold hand hooked my sleeve. I turned back and met her eyes. They were red and swollen, but a faint light had returned. She looked at me. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Still, I understood. Water. I nearly crawled to pour it. My hands shook and spilled half. After she drank a few sips, she leaned on me and closed her eyes. Another tear slipped down. But this time it wasn't dead despair. It was fragile, exhausted. She let me near her again. That almost made me cry with relief. The days after that were slow, painful repair. Shen Yue's body slowly recovered. But her heart was far from healed. She became strangely quiet. Even quieter than before. She still ran the shop with me, but moved slowly. Sometimes she stared blankly at a plate. At night, she woke in fear, covered in cold sweat. When I held her, I felt her heart pounding wild. She stopped writing to me. When she needed to say something, she used simple gestures. I knew that thorn was still buried deep. Jiang Shue's words were poison, slowly eating away her trust in us. She began avoiding my touch. When I added food to her plate, she paused before taking it. When I tried holding her at night, she stiffly turned away. That distance suffocated me. More than any fight, I knew she was struggling. Rechecking everything between us. My help. My proposal. My love. Wondering if it all came from guilt. The turn came one afternoon. An old lady who often bought whole wheat bread handed us a thick envelope. She said it held specialty biscuits from her son overseas. She insisted on thanking us. Shen Yue couldn't refuse, so she took it. You and your husband are good people. Honest shops like yours are rare now. You two must live well together. The old lady held her hand and kept talking. After she left, Shen Yue held the biscuits and stood still for a long time. Sunlight fell across her lowered lashes. I watched from afar, afraid to disturb her. Then she turned and walked to me. She handed me the biscuits, then pointed to the old box in the corner. Inside were a few wedding photos. There was also her treasure, the old notebook where I wrote that insurance clause. I froze, then understood. I dug it out from the box, brushed off the dust, and handed it over. She turned to the last blank page, then picked up a pen. Her hand still trembled, but every word was firm. I dreamed of my parents. They smiled at me in a bright place. They didn't seem to blame you. She paused there for a long time. Ink spread into a dot. Then she continued. I was thinking, if you were only good to me from guilt. Then when I stole bread, why did your eyes show only impatience? Not pity. You made that call only to end a troublesome matter. And when I agreed to marry you, why did you freeze so long? Then turn red. She looked up, eyes full of tears. Confused, but carrying a little hope. She wasn't questioning me. She was asking for an answer. An answer to help her leave the nightmare. I looked at her. My heart felt held by a gentle hand. I picked up the pen and wrote beneath her words. Because I'm not good. When I helped you, I didn't think much. Maybe I was in a good mood. Maybe I just hated trouble. When I married you, I wasn't even sure it was love. I only knew I felt peaceful beside you, but now I know. I can't bear your tears. I can't stand you being bullied. When you suffer, I wish it were me. This has nothing to do with my father. It's only because you're Shen Yue. If I feel guilty, it's because I met you too late and let you suffer. And because I failed to protect you, letting you hurt because of me. I handed the pen back. She read my words and cried harder. She picked up the pen and added 3 words after mine. Then she put it down and gently held my fingers. Her fingers were still cold, but that firm touch drove away the darkness in me. That night, she stopped sleeping with her back to me. She curled into my arms, like a bird finally finding its nest. Her breathing was even. Listening to it, I felt it was the world's best music. We knew the scar remained. Maybe it always would. But at least I knew. Our bond was stronger now. A few days later, we decided to leave the city. Not only because of Jiang Shui. We wanted a new place. Without shadows from the past. A real fresh start. Shen Yue didn't hesitate. To her, home was wherever I was. We sold Glimmer Bakery. Packed up and headed south. When the neighbors heard, they came to send us off. They brought bags and bags of local goods. Girl, come back if you suffer. Granny will back you up. She held Shen Yue's hand and cried. Shen Yue nodded with red eyes and gave her fresh cookies. The night before we left, we packed the attic. Shen Yue found an iron box. Inside were her grandma's things. A few old photos, and the insurance clause I wrote back then. The paper yellowed but the words stayed clear. If one day I fall poor and beg on the street, remember to give me rice. She looked at it and suddenly smiled. But while smiling, tears fell again. She picked up a pen and wrote carefully on the back, then gave it to me. In this life, half my bowl is always yours. My eyes burned. I pulled her close. Okay. It's a deal. When the train moved, the city holding too much pain and warmth for us slowly faded outside. Shen Yue slept on my shoulder, still clutching my clothes. Sunlight poured over her face. Peaceful and calm. I kissed the top of her hair. Then closed my eyes. What came next? I didn't know, but if she was there, anywhere was home. We settled in a small coastal town. We used the money to open a smaller dessert shop. We named it Evening Time. Shen Yue baked. I handled customers. Life was poor but peaceful. As she walked out of the shadows, her face slowly softened again. Sometimes late at night, nightmares still woke her. But I always held her right away and patted her back until she slept again. One evening a year later, we walked by the sea, hand in hand. The sunset melted. The tide breathed softly. Shen Yue suddenly stopped and pointed at something shining. I picked it up. A piece of glass smoothed by waves. Under the sunset it reflected warm light. She held it to the sun for a long time. Then placed it in my palm and closed my hands, telling me to keep it. I teased her. A love token. She nodded hard. Eyes shining bright. One afternoon, the air was hot and heavy. Few customers came in. Shen Yue stood at the work table, preparing cake batter for tomorrow. I sat behind the counter checking accounts. Then I heard a faint gasp. I looked up and saw her hand stop around the whisk. Outside, a young father carried his daughter. The little girl's bell-like laugh came through the glass. I put down the ledger and walked to her. She didn't look at me. Her eyes followed the father and daughter until they vanished into the alley. In the afternoon light, her profile looked a little pale. Her eyes held something I couldn't name. Longing mixed with sadness. I gently touched her arm. She snapped back and forced a smile. Then shook her head, saying she was fine. After that, she lowered her head and stirred the batter harder, as if chasing something away. I knew she missed her parents. That childhood she should have had, full of laughter and parents nearby, was a regret no one could fix. Jiang Shui's words were a poisonous thorn. Even on bright days, they still stabbed without warning. After closing that night, we sat by the back door, feeling the sea breeze. Waves gently hit the shore. Fishing lights dotted the sea. Shen Yue leaned on my shoulder. Very quiet. I held her hand. Her palm was a little cold. Yue, I broke the silence. Should we go see them? Her body trembled. She looked up, confused. I chose my words carefully. I mean, let's visit your parents. I know the cemetery. It was in Jiang Shua's files. Let's go talk to them. Tell them you're doing well. And for my dad. Say sorry. Those last words were hard. But I had to say them. Shen Yue froze. Tears gathered fast. But she held them back. She looked at me. There was fear and struggle. Then finally, decision. She nodded hard. We chose a clear morning. We closed the shop. Brought a bouquet she made herself. White flowers and green lisianthus. And went to the cemetery. It was very quiet. Facing the sea, backed by mountains. A peaceful place to rest. Following the records, we found a joint grave. The tombstone was simple. Her parents' engraved photos had blurred with time. Shen Yue walked over, crouched and laid down the flowers. She reached out, with her fingertips, slowly wiping dust and leaves away. Gentle, like touching a childhood dream. She didn't cry. She only wiped silently. Sunlight fell on her side profile. Quiet and almost sacred. I stood behind her. After a long time with them. She stood and waved me over. I walked up and stood beside her. Sea wind brushed our hair and clothes. She looked at the tombstone. Then at me. Then she raised her hands and signed. Her movements were slow, as if every gesture carried everything. Dad, Mom, this is Yifan. My husband. She paused. Took a breath. Then continued. He treats me well. We have our own shop now. It's called Evening Time. Life is peaceful. I'm content. What happened back then was a terrible accident. I know it wasn't Yifan's fault. He's different from his father. Her signs grew heavier, but stayed firm. She turned to look at me. Tears finally fell. But she was smiling. Then she continued to the tombstone. So please don't blame him. And don't worry about me. I am very happy now. Truly, watching her introduce me. Defend me. And tell them she was happy. My throat tightened hard. My eyes burned. I reached out and held her hand tightly. Facing the tombstone, I bowed deeply. After straightening, I looked at the blurred photos and said solemnly, Uncle, Auntie, I'm Yifan. I'm sorry, and thank you. Thank you for bringing her here. Please rest easy. As long as I live, I won't let her suffer again. I'll use everything I have to protect her. I spoke slowly. Every word came from my heart. I knew spoken promises were light, but it was all I could do. After the prayer, we held hands and walked down the slope. On the way back, Shen Yue felt lighter. Like she'd finally set down years of weight. She even pointed at roadside wildflowers and signed excitedly, saying we could use their juice as natural coloring. From then on, I could feel something change in her. The faint shadow in her eyes seemed to fade. Her smile grew brighter and freer. She began planning our future. What flowers to plant by the shop. When we saved enough. Whether to rent next door and expand. She even shyly signed that maybe one day we could adopt a child. I knew that cemetery trip wasn't only comfort for her parents. It was also a proper farewell to our past. We couldn't change the tragedy, but we could choose the future. We carefully poured away the bitter memories inside that evening time, then added understanding and forgiveness to all our evenings left, slowly tasting the rest of our lives. One day after closing, we sat by the sea, watching sunset. The setting sun turned the sea into a mirror. Shen Yue rested on my shoulder. Then she traced words on my palm. Not sign language. She wrote with her finger. I carefully read it. Evening time. My heart is full of joy. I lowered my head and kissed her hair.